Hi, it's Kate French here, clinical psychologist of Side by Side Psychology. I'm coming to you a little bit later this Friday afternoon because we've had a huge week with Danielle and I finishing off our Colour Monsters group and our Happiness Ninjas group. And so we've just had an action-packed week full of amazing activities. So I've left the office and I'm coming to you live from my home office just to share a little bit of my, takeaways today rather than a resource. Just my impressions from the group and what we've learned and some of the continued discussion about positive psychology. So I wanted to talk a little bit about mindfulness today and teaching that to children because I think, as I said at my last Friday Live, it's a really big part of what I enjoy doing, and I think it's a really important skill for children to learn. So I wanted to just share a little bit about how when we do our groups, Danielle and I designed them uniquely each and every time for the group of children that we've got, all wrapped up in a different kind of theme. A lot of our focus, of course, is on emotional literacy for the younger children, and then we move more gradually into developing emotion regulation skills. We always finish our time with the children introducing a new mindfulness activity. So they really vary. Some of our activities tend to be more movement focused because sitting still and doing the traditional mindfulness is really hard for kids. It's not a natural state for their bodies to be still. They're really moving. And mindfulness is not about just stillness, it's about noticing. It's about zoning in attention and being super focused on that. And children are naturally really good at mindfulness. It's that next level that we actually just get them to understand and pay attention to themselves actually doing that skill. So we use all kinds of different ways of doing that. If you're interested at trying to encourage children to develop this skill of mindfulness, because we know it is so good for long-term emotional regulation ability. So we use our sensory kind of profile to do that. So sometimes we're zoning in our attention onto a certain sense. Sound is a really great place to start. Touch is a really great place to start as well, getting children to touch and feel things and then describe and notice those sensations on their skin or in their hands or whatever part of your body that you use that with. We also use our sight to do that as well. In fact, we incorporated this week in our Happiness Ninjas having one student blindfolded and the other student giving direction, doing a drawing activity. And whilst this wasn't set up in our mindfulness space activity, it was a really good use of how we zone in on one kind of sense and how we have to really rely on that more. And it was also a really lovely time to look at communication between the students in our group as well. So using our senses is a really nice space to start. That's just my cat trying to get out of my office at the moment. The other nice way that you can introduce mindfulness to your children or your classroom or whoever you want to, or even for yourself, is doing mindfulness-based activities like drawing, like art, but bringing the attention to noticing the experience. And the other aspect that we often do is we try to do a bit of movement, which is always really good. There's a really great book that I found that has links of audios to it. It's called Sitting Still Like a Frog, which is, of course, a frog often known about being bouncing around and croaking around, but also a frog sits very still when it's looking to catch a fly or an insect to eat as well. So Sitting Still Like a Frog is a workbook. It has links to audios as well, and we can use a couple of those if you want to not be delivering a sequence to children, but you would like to participate with the group that you're doing that with. And I'll put the link to that great workbook as well that I've had a bit of a look at. So using all different kinds of methods to introduce kids to mindfulness is really important to think about. In my individual work, I often introduce them to different apps as well. So different little cartoon animations where we look at practicing maybe it's mindful breathing, all kinds of different things. So really have a look at exploring different kinds of ways because every child is going to respond a little bit differently to that kind of mindfulness activity. So I just wanted to share a little bit. Sometimes you'll find kids are really not in the mood for doing, quiet kind of still sort of mindfulness activity. We often create a craft activity, so a lot of the time we were creating mindfulness the glitter jars as well, so you can introduce the idea, encourage the practice as well, and make it fun and light. This is a skill that will develop over time. It just needs lots of repetition to learn something and get really good at it. And it's a really worthwhile kind of thing to keep encouraging. So I'll put a few links in the comments for some of those other resources that I found really useful. But I just wanted to really encourage that if you're interested in developing those skills with the children you either work with or your own children, don't be discouraged if they go, I can't do this, or it's boring, or I don't like it, or I'm not enjoying it. It's really being flexible and finding other ways that you can keep introducing that to. So I encourage you to keep trying, keep discussing in the comments if you want to, or ask me any questions that you have about some methods that you might have tried or developing new ideas. I'd love to see some other ideas and have conversations about that. So if you've joined me live, thank you so much for doing so. I am going to head off now and enjoy a little bit of the remaining school holidays in Victoria that there is. And I look forward to catching you next time at my Friday Live. Thanks.